Get in the game with the college-branded Venmo debit card. Wreck your team with every tap and earn up to 5% cash back with Venmo Stash, a new rewards program from Venmo. No monthly fee, no minimum balance, just school pride and spending power. Get in the game and sign up for the Venmo debit card at venmo.com/collegecard. The Venmo MasterCard is issued by the Bancorp Bank N.A. Select schools available. Venmo Stash terms and exclusions apply at venmo.me/stash terms. Max $100 cash back per month.
This is Under the Dome. On today's episode, we're taking a look at what's happening in North Carolina politics for the week of September 26, 2022.
For the News and Observer and the NC Insider, I'm Dawn Vaughan, your host for Under the Dome for Monday, September 26, 2022. I'm here today with my colleague, Lars Dolder. We recently held our second NNO and Insider event, Politics at the Pub, where readers can talk with lawmakers and reporters about what's going on in North Carolina politics in person. We held it recently at the Raleigh Times and our first one as well. If you couldn't make it out this time, we'll share a clip of the conversation now and another one later. And it was a conversation that Lars moderated between Republican Representative Jason Saine of Lincolnton and Democratic House Leader Robert Reives of Chatham County. So here's just a snippet of that conversation. You'll be hearing Representative Reives talking about former President Ronald Reagan with a few quips added from Representative Saine. So here's a little clip from that.
Imagine if Ronald Reagan was a 45-year-old Ronald Reagan now trying to run. He'd be eviscerated. Oh my gosh, can you imagine? I mean, then a Hollywood guy too? Oh my gosh. He
ran a union.
Yeah, oh my man, I'm telling you.
Smoking a cigarette.
Yeah, exactly. So, that's the whole thing. That I really do hope one day that we'll back this down.
All right, and we'll let you hear a little bit more later in the show. So to use the phrase top of mind, as Saine says a lot, is the status of Medicaid expansion, as well as taxes on student loan forgiveness. Let's start talking about Medicaid expansion first, because it's the 2022 perennial issue, stalemate, quagmire, standoff, trench warfare, so many different synonyms to explain what's going on at the legislature and the lack of movement. So, Lars, you heard Berger and Senate Leader Berger and Governor Cooper were at a hospital event this past week where Medicaid expansion came up, at least in the questions, and more questions for them later. Where are we? What's going on?
I liked your colorful introduction. Those synonyms are appropriate. It seems like we're up and down with Medicaid expansion. As soon as we think that legislators have reached an accord, some hiccup arrives that brings them back to the starting ground. For example, we thought briefly after the North Carolina Healthcare Association released a compromise. They are a powerful interest group that has resisted certificate of need reform. That's a law that's kind of obscure. If you listeners aren't familiar with it, it's okay. You can look up our explainer from the News and Observer. But the gist of it, why it's important, is that certificate of need reform is the hang-up that has prevented the House and the Senate in North Carolina from agreeing on a Medicaid expansion bill. The House is in concert with the North Carolina Healthcare Association. They don't want to change the law as it is now. The Senate, on the other hand, would like to see change. And so what we've seen is that the NCHA had proposed a compromise. We thought that might have moved negotiations forward, but you asked about what Berger and Cooper said, and the short of it was, and this is actually a quote from Berger, it's not even close. He's not happy whatsoever with the supposed compromise from the NCHA. He's not been clear with us what he actually would like to see in the bill. He keeps directing us to earlier versions, but hasn't said what their recent negotiations have covered. The short of it, all we know so far is he's not happy nor content with what the opposition is saying. And so until something changes and one side offers a compromise, we will stay at a standstill.
I think, lawmakers like a good quagmire, and this is what the one is now. I remember, I guess, a little over a week ago when that hospital letter came out, and one of our press corps colleagues said, oh, is this, the big Friday news dump? And No. Maybe, I'm like, are things imminent? That was the headline on the story I heard that day. No, things aren't imminent. I don't know if they ever are really. Maybe that was more wishful thinking of there actually was some movement, but that doesn't appear to be the case. So it doesn't seem like Berger is quite, maybe he wants a lot more certainly than what the hospitals are willing to do. And one thing that he noted when reporters talked to him for the brief non-voting session this past week at the legislature, and his response was that he thought it, was more public relations, like putting the letter out as a press release. Of course, Republicans and Democrats do that pretty regularly with them. Those of you that remember the quagmire of 2019, I guess, with the budget, it was very old-fashioned letters that they would send back and forth between the Republican Senate leadership and the governor's office, when the phrase then was, as far as how the Republicans explained it, was that the governor had a Medicaid or nothing ultimatum over the budget. But anyway, so that drug out forever, and it looks like things aren't changing.
Yeah. Now, while we're talking about Berger, as politicians have gone in the last week, I think he's made more news than most, because you mentioned earlier student loan forgiveness, which has been a big conversation on the national level. And we've seen recently where the conversations reached North Carolina with some of the jurisdiction under the state government with respect to loan forgiveness, whether or not they can still impose taxes on the money that's forgiven. You talked with Berger about that. Can you fill us in on what we might see over the next few months? Are they leaning toward tax forgiveness as well?
It's funny. I was thinking about work. We're always working on multiple stories at a time, and we only had just a few minutes with Senator Berger before that session. Not even 15 minutes, I think, with reporters taking questions. And I remember wanting to ask that, and I didn't. It was somebody else, like our press corps colleague, Colin Campbell, asked the question about the taxes, and I thought, great, I wanted to write about that too. So to give you some context, the President Biden. The administration plan for student loan forgiveness, which of course is a Democratic idea, so Republicans aren't going to like it no matter what generally. And so what came out from the State Department of Revenue is that, yes, the student loan forgiveness means you don't have to pay federal taxes, but you still have to pay state taxes unless the General Assembly does something. So I wrote about that when that first came out of, is the General Assembly going to do anything? And kind of heard that, no, this probably isn't going to happen. And then Berger, basically just shut it down, swatted it down hard this past week if the legislature was going to do anything to mean that you don't have to pay your state taxes on loan forgiveness. And he said no. And he also took issue with the comparison that Democrats have made, others have made, about the PPP loan forgiveness, and saying, that's just different circumstances. And not only did he say, no, the state definitely is not going to, give you a break on your state taxes, that he didn't even think Biden had the authority to do it in the first place with the forgiveness. So that's definitely not going to change. I've heard from a lot of people saying, don't you think they'll do something? I'm like, Berger is the Senate leader in the majority party in one chamber, not both, but pretty significantly powerful. You need both chambers to pass anything, and it's not going to happen. So taxes are certain, as death, as we all know, and that's that's just what it is. That's
rings true in North Carolina.
Right. All right. Well, we're going to take a quick break, and when we come back, we'll share another clip from the Politics at the Pub event. Not too much. The one we had earlier in the season, we turned into a podcast, so you heard all of it. But we'll just give you a little bit, and you should probably come to the next one if you want to hear full conversation. So we'll be back with that and headliner of the week.
It's tax season, and at LifeLock, we know you're tired of numbers. But here's a big one you need to hear. Billions. That's the amount of money in refunds the IRS has flagged for possible identity fraud. Now here's another big number. 100 million. That's how many data points LifeLock monitors every second. If your identity is stolen, we'll fix it guaranteed. One last big number. Save up to 40% your first year. Visit LifeLock.com/podcast for the threats you can't control. Terms apply.
You're listening to Under the Dome. I'm News and Observer Politics reporter Dawn Vaughan, here with Lars Dolder. We're going to play another segment from our Politics at the Pub event with Representative Saine, who's the Lincoln County Republican. He is he's one of the head chairs of appropriations, which means they control the money and the budget in the House, and Representative Reives, who's the Democratic House, the minority party leader, and he's from Chatham County. And this election season, they have pretty different setup. Saine is in a incredibly safe red district, and he's running unopposed. So he's already been reelected, and Reives has a much more competitive district. It's changed a little bit since redistricting. He was not initially when he first got into the General Assembly, part of the Durham delegation. Then he was the Durham delegation, and now he's back out from that again, because I feel like every podcast always has some Durham mention. So anyway, so Reives is understandably a little more stressed out about the election than Saine, who's just coasting to another term. So a lot of the conversation, we did talk about Medicaid expansion. We talked about just moving into the middle ground, if there is any, in contentious politics. When I say we, I just mean Saine and Reives and Lars as moderator, but we as the Politics at the Pub host. So anyway, here's a clip where, if you heard at the beginning, where they were talking about Reagan and laughing about it. And here's a clip, a little more about that from Saine in the context of Reagan. So you can hear that now. And obviously the audio isn't going to be as perfect as this. It was from my phone sitting on a table as they're talking, and you can hear the good times in the background of everybody. That sort of low hum of chatter and drinking and eating, pretty much. So here's that clip.
I matched my party. I am a Republican because of Ronald Reagan. But it doesn't count me out of working on the issues, just like Robert and I've talked about. And so I think you see that, to say that there's any definitive one way or the other. I really, people can move and shift in primaries and they'll do whatever they're going to do. So I think it's just a larger symptom of folks not caring so much about a party label as they care about what people are doing when they're in office.
All right, so make sure you come back for the next Politics at the Pub event. If you read the Insider, those of you that are subscribers, it always opens up to you first. So make sure you read that and everything else that Lars puts together in the Insider, since he's the editor of that. So headliner of the week. I'll start off with this one. It was really funny. The Outer Banks Voice had a story about the Nags Head Pizza Company, and local government always just brings out, all sorts of commenters. And this one was maybe someone we've heard of before, U.S. Senator Richard Burr, who had to chime in too, because he's a nearby property owner. So if you go to Nags Head very often, or if you're familiar with that stretch of the road on South Virginia Dare Trail, there's a bunch of, beach houses. And it's not, there's maybe some year-round people on that street, probably not, and a variety of businesses. And it's pretty crowded. And there is a building that had been there, and zoning, followed, and everything was fine for a pizza place. And if you look at the Google Maps image of it, or if you've driven down there, it's, just a pizza place with some seating outside and a parking lot. But people in the houses nearby are worried that they have to look from their porch and watch people eating pizza, and they can't have that. And what if there's one quote in the story about, it's just human nature, maybe they're going to come swim in my pool. And one of the Twitter commenters said, oh no, what if I end up in the pool when I go eat pizza? It's just really funny about Anyway, you can read the Outer Banks paper to see, or their website to find out more about that. So the headliner is Nags Head Pizza, where I can't wait to go eat when I go to Nags Head for a week every summer, and I can't wait to go eat there and eat my pizza outside, and I'll try not to bother the neighbors when I do it. So Nags Head Pizza is my headliner. All right, Lars, what's your headliner this week?
Mine's not as fun as a pizza place, but it's still fun to me. I'm going with golf, specifically its intersection with politics. I love golf. If you readers didn't know that, now you do. If anyone wants to give me a scoop on the golf course, that would be dandy. North Carolina has a strong golf pedigree. I think everyone knows that. We have the men's and women's U.S. Opens. They're both regularly held in Pinehurst. The Wells Fargo Championship on the PGA Tour is held in Charlotte. But last week, we started the President's Cup, which pits a team of American golfers against some international competitors. So that was an exciting win for Charlotte. It's at the Quail Hollow, which is the same course where the Wells Fargo Championship is held. And besides adding millions in local economic impact, the tournament has also attracted some prominent political figures. So Governor Cooper was there. He spoke at length about what it did for North Carolina and golf heritage here in the state. He was there early on in the tournament. Former Presidents George Bush and Bill Clinton were also planning to go as of the recording of this podcast. And now we haven't seen the conclusion of the tournament now when we're recording, but it will have finished by the time you hear us. And there was rumor that President Biden was going to make a cameo on Sunday. So by the time you're hearing this, we'll see if that panned out. That would be interesting. It makes sense. It's called the President's Cup after all, even though it's not like sponsored by the president. But, you know, he can claim some kind of connection. So there's my headliner, golf. I love it. I watch it on TV, as boring as that is.
Watch golf on television?
I happily watch golf on television, and I'm very engaged when I do. Yeah,
I've never played golf. I've played miniature golf, and I've driven a golf cart, and that's really fun, actually, driving a golf cart. So
there's something for everybody on the golf course.
So I lived well, my dad was stationed at Fort Gordon. I lived in Augusta when I was a kid. And the spring break every year was not around any sort of religious holidays or any other calendar reasons, except for whenever the Masters was. And that was spring break for the public schools there, because you might as well be out of school. I don't know, because of the traffic or because, you know, your parents are all going and having some pimento cheese sandwiches or whatever. So
I have a Masters polo that I wear often on the golf course, and it gets me lots of street cred, the street cred equivalent for golfers. I don't know what you would call that.
But not the green jacket, though.
I don't have the green jacket, and I didn't get my polo at the Masters. So invariably, people are very impressed, and then they ask which Masters I attended. And I'm saying, I'm sorry. I think I got this at a pawn shop, and then I lose all respect.
I think my mom volunteered there one time and got a like Masters glass or something, like a pint glass or something. If any of you have Masters jackets or have been at the Masters, tweet at us, let us know.
Yeah, I would love to see that.
Well, as always, thank you for listening to our politics podcast. I'm Dawn Vaughan with Lars Dolder. We'll talk to you next time.
For more from our politics team, subscribe to the News and Observer at newsobserver.com/subscribe. Follow us on Twitter at Under the Dome and NC Insider, and sign up for our weekly political newsletter, also called Under the Dome, at newsobserver.com/newsletters. Thanks for listening.